So it seems that the Tyranid Pyrovore has gone from 0 to hero. These flame-spurting little terrors are now a spectacularly tough and incredibly murderous threat to light infantry. For 90 points you could be putting out 21 auto hits, all at strength 5 and AP -2 if you've got a couple of buffs. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, where I've been hard at work making a Codex Tyranids review. Hopefully that should be out in the fairly near future, but I felt like stopping off along the way to take a quick look at the Pyrovore, perhaps one of the most maligned Tyranid units ever since it came out, but now Games Workshop seems to have finally gotten round to making them good, and very good indeed. In the video we'll take a quick look over their datasheet, talk about their fairly impressive damage output, and one crunchy damage combo which can make them even more deadly. So in the new Tyranid Codex, Pyrovores are still an elite's choice. They're 30 points per model, so up from 28, and you can still get 1 to 3 models in a squad. It really doesn't seem like the biggest investment, to be honest, less than 100 points for a really annoying unit, and with their improved weapon profiles it looks like they'll just be roasting enemy infantry of all descriptions. Statline wise, they've got a movement of 5, weapon skill 3+, ballistic skill 3+, strength 5, toughness 5, 5 wounds, 3 attacks, leadership 5 and a 3+ save. The stat line is basically improved in every single way. They already weren't too bad in terms of toughness for the points that you paid for them. Toughness 4, 4 wounds and a 4+ save, but for only 2 points, getting an extra pip of toughness, a wound and a pip of save just makes them spectacularly hard to shift for that points cost. They are core infantry as well, so it means that you could even potentially get light cover on top of that. And it does mean even if you just wanted them as a small unit to do some opportunistic small actions and things, certain ones that they can do like raise banners, then individual Pyrovores don't really seem like that bad a choice, particularly with how tough they are and how they're actually really quite a good threat just all on their own. Otherwise for keywords they do have Core and Acid Blood and Acid Maw. Those two trigger stratagems, and Core is kind of useful for certain synaptic link buffs. It means that they could potentially get reroll 1s to wound from a Tyranid Prime perhaps. Despite their defense being so much tougher, really the main event is this new Flamespurt gun that they have. In the previous edition it was kind of like a heavy flamer, a 10-inch range gun with strength 5, AP -1 and damage 1. Not exactly useless, but still hardly exactly stand out for a model that doesn't really do all that much else. Now when you fire it, you get a dual firing mode included. You can either have a burning spray at 12 inches, assault d6, strength 6, AP -2 and damage 2. That's a profile that just seems designed to chew through Space Marines or any other 2-wound infantry models. But if you're firing against hordes, you get to use the Pyrogout profile, 18 inches, 2d6 hits, all at strength 4, AP -1 and damage 1. Both of the profiles are really quite impressive to be honest. Obviously the burning spray is going to be better against most hard targets, but I think if anything I might be equally impressed by this Pyrogout one. It still gets a pip of AP, and getting a massive 2d6 auto hits for just 30 points seems really quite crazy. In terms of damage output against infantry, you're pretty much going to outshoot an entire squad of Space Marine intercessors with bolt rifles rapid firing here, though admittedly at a slightly closer range. He's not even really all that bad in melee either. His bludgeoning fists now hit on 3s now, strength +1 so strength 6, AP -3 and damage 1. Certainly not going to be winning fights against dedicated melee units, but that's a profile that's more than capable of punching a 1-wound infantry or 2 into the ground, even if the enemy does manage to engage him and lock him up through the big wall of likely overwatch. They are maybe a little bit limited stratagem wise despite being core infantry, but I thought perhaps 2 of the most interesting ones might be the Acid Maw and Acid Blood ones. The Acid Maw allows them a little bit more bite in combat. Per model you get 1d6, and that d6 gives you a 3+ chance to cause a mortal wound in combat. I guess it could be handy if you're trying to finish off an injured enemy vehicle or something. Kind of borderline worth though, even if you've got a full squad of 3 models. I think potentially the Acid Blood one is more interesting though. This is basically one for when you're attacking melee and you want to cause a fair bit of damage in return. If you think your opponent's quite likely to wipe out the entire unit, trigger this for 2 CP. Every wound that you lose in melee gives you a 4+ chance to inflict 1 mortal wound up to the enemy, up to a maximum of 6. Theoretically, if you had a unit of 3 Pyrovores and the enemy was just about to kill them in combat, that should usually average you the full 6 mortal wounds unless you roll low. Should easily be enough to kill a couple of enemy models in revenge. I guess in theory that could even be enough to wipe out an enemy unit, say if they're charging you with some very dangerous 1-wound infantry or something. Certainly costs CP, but still a very powerful and unexpected trick to have in the bag. In terms of damage output, 3 Pyrovores for 90 points puts you a big 15 toughness 5, 3+ save wounds on the table. Just by itself, that's really quite impressive. You're going to need dedicated anti-tank weapons to take them down. Damage 1 small arms with strength 4 or less are just going to be completely laughed off by them. And even with a fairly low movement characteristic of 5, they've still got really quite a big threat range. As their weapons auto-hit and are assault weapons, you can advance them every turn and not take any penalties. Even with the shorter range profile, it should mean that they should be able to reliably threaten units in around about 20-inch range, or 26-inch for the longer range spurt attack. Obviously, they're a fair bit more effective against infantry. Just with average damage, you'll expect around about 11 or 12 dead guardsmen from the flame spurts, 7 dead Necron warriors before they reanimate, 4 or 5 dead 2 wound space marines if you take the burning spray attack, and the burning spray is the better one against toughness 7 or 8 vehicles without a -1 damage on them. You'll average around about 4 or 5 wounds to them, which I still think is not really too bad for a unit that's going to be mainly about being anti-infantry. It's quite nice that the profile's so reliable as well. You don't have to worry about any -1 to hit mechanics, and having a choice of profiles can really help get around some enemy defensive tricks depending on what you're targeting. Just as one idea for buffing them, here's a combo using the new version of Hive Fleet Kronos in the new book. Kronos' primary trait gives you an extra 4-inch range with weapons. If they advance, that's going to be an even longer threat range, and if they strike at anything within half range, then the AP of their attacks gets improved by -1, very relevant for both profiles. Then maybe you could combine that with their Symbiostorm psychic power, which gives them +1 strength on their ranged weapons, and you've got a very tasty little flamer unit there. I quite like the idea of putting these in strategic reserve, having them turn up on the board flanks, and somewhere within synaptic link range to chain to that Symbiostorm power wherever it's cast. As the boosted range means you're 22 inches on that Pyrogout attack, it means that you could be in half range for the extra AP, so in theory your 3 models could just trundle out of strategic reserve and then hit the enemy with an average of 21 auto hits, all at strength 5 AP -2 damage 1, with a threat range of 11 inches. That's a really generalist threatening profile that's going to hurt just about anything. Alternatively, if they weren't coming out of strategic reserve and they were just starting on the board, manage to get them in range of 8 inches of anything, and you've got an average of 10 or 11 auto hits, all at strength 7, AP -3 and damage 2. That's going to be incredibly threatening even to the toughness 6 things like custody bikes or light vehicles, a really nasty generalist attack. Still certainly look like they would have weaknesses. They're still not the sort of unit that you'd really want to be sending after enemy heavies if you have the choice, so I think it would still remain to be seen whether people would want to use these as a big damage dealer unit. I can maybe see them being used a bit more just as single model cheap units to hold down objectives and actually have a fairly massive anti-infantry threat if they do see some approaching enemies trying to steal their objective off them. Armies with expensive 1 wound infantry, like maybe Eldar or Sisters of Battle, really aren't going to like these guys, I think. So anyway, let me know what you think down in the comments below. Are Pyrovores looking as scary as I think they are on paper? And feel free to check back later. I'll certainly be getting out that Codex Tyranid review as soon as I can. I might stop off for another unit review or 2 along the way though. Feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics if you'd like to see more Tyranid things. And if you'd like to help support the channel, I would just like to mention that the channel's Patreon page is down in the video description below. It is the thing that allows me the time to make quite so many of these videos, and make 40k tactics content as my main thing. Feel free to check it out if you'd like to. I do try and give a fair few rewards to channel patrons, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things happen next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with the chance to win some really big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.